Welcome to the Sounds podcast with Tom Needham, and also the Sounds of Film radio show where art, innovation, and storytelling collide. Today, we're delving into the fascinating world of Grand Theft Hamlet, a groundbreaking documentary that reimagines Shakespeare's Hamlet within the violent, chaotic, and visually stunning universe of Grand Theft Auto Online. Directed by the visionary husband and wife duo of Sam Crane and Pinny Grylls, this film captures the challenges and triumphs of staging a classic play in a digital space where anything and everything can go wrong. The film, Grand Theft Hamlet, recently won the documentary feature jury prize at South by Southwest. Now let's meet the innovative filmmakers. Sam, Penny, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
Great to be here.
Yeah, oh my goodness, this is such an innovative film. Can the two of you tell me a little bit about how the idea of this film came to be?
Well, it was the pandemic, and Sam is a theatre actor. And in London, we were having a terrible time. I'm sure you were in the United States. All the theatres were closed, and we didn't know whether they would ever open again. And it was the third lockdown that the UK experienced, and I think theatres had tried to open but had failed. And I think at that point, Sam had a sort of existential crisis, didn't you?
Yeah, that's fair. Um, and I think I also had a lot of time on my hands and started playing lots of video games, as loads of people did. You know, there was this massive spike of people playing online video games. Partly as just something to do, and partly as a way to connect with people and hang out with people that you couldn't really do so much in real life. So I was hanging out with my friend Mark, also an actor, and we were just messing around in playing lots of GTA. And then one day we stumbled across, inside the game, we stumbled across this theater called the Vinewood Bowl. And we're like, wow,
Hmm.
this is cool. Let's try and do something. Let's try and put on a show. Let's try and do some Shakespeare. And so we did. And lots of kind of chaos and carnage ensued because that's what happens in GTA.
And you were very much recording it from the very start. I remember you had the idea quite early on, and I said, "Well, why don't you just record everything you're doing?" And you put on a little, recorded the opening of Hamlet, and you put it onto YouTube,
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of people watched it, which was surprising, and it got picked up by the Gamer Press, and they wrote about it as being this really funny little YouTube video. I was watching, and I'm a documentary filmmaker, and I was thinking, this is really interesting and really funny. But I wonder if I could maybe make myself an avatar and jump into the game as an avatar filmmaker. I'd never played games before, and sort of start recording things, but in a the whole process of putting on this show and like the whole story of it and who they met, doing auditions, doing rehearsals, and also trying to up our game, so to speak, and make something a bit cinematic, which the game certainly lends itself to because it's an incredibly beautiful and
Mm.
picturesque game.
So I guess we had these like sort of twin challenges. We had the challenge of trying to put on this production because we wanted it to be a full production of Hamlet, so we had to find other actors in the game. So we were
Mhm.
kind of going up to people and seeing if they wanted to audition, and just, but most of the time, obviously, people just try and shoot you when you're in the game. So
And
that
they
was
were
quite a
not
challenge.
professional actors. I mean, obviously, no, but they were just ordinary gamers a lot of the
Yeah.
time. So they were people who'd never
But
may not even know a Shakespeare speech.
yeah, but then the other side, the other kind of aspect of the challenge is like, how do you make a documentary in this space as well? So kind of these two different things going on at the same time.
I have a million questions for you. I think most people know the game, but in case there's anyone who's not familiar with Grand Theft Auto, can you just explain to our listeners what it is and why, in particular, it was so perfect for you to make a film in this world that the game offers?
So it's a game, we're in playing in Grand Theft Auto Online. So it's an online space. You're in this world that is kind of like a fictionalized version of Los Angeles. It's called Los Santos in the game. And you find yourself in a server with up to 30 other people. It could be from anywhere in the world. and you can go around in this space. You can play some missions, you can do heists, you can rob banks, you can
Steal
sell
cards.
drugs, you can steal cars, you can just go around shooting each other, but you can also just like wander around and take in what is actually an incredibly beautiful setting. Like
Hmm.
there's mountains, there's sea, there's wildflowers, there's forests, and it's so incredibly realized, this space. It's really kind of quite astoundingly beautiful. So you can just, yeah, a lot of people do that in the game actually, just sort of wander around and kind of take it all in.
It
And then you kind of get the feeling in there because it's so well designed and so full of detail. You get this feeling that you can do anything. You know you have this immense feeling of freedom in there. So and then we thought, well, if we really can do anything, what can we actually put on a play?
That's so interesting. I'm a former English teacher. I've taught Hamlet actually a number of times. I
Mhm.
don't claim to be an expert, but I love Hamlet, and I'm just amazed that that's what you decided to do. Were there any themes in Hamlet that you felt really lent itself to the world of Grand Theft Auto?
I mean, I think the first theme that came up was this. We felt very much that the Santos was a kind of rotten state of Denmark. You know, the whole
Mm.
point of the game is to kind of go and steal other people's stuff. And of course, Hamlet is all about stealing someone else's stuff, someone's crown and someone's wife. Um, and I guess there is also something about the play which I'm sure when you were an English teacher you were teaching, which was about, you know, not really knowing who people are. You know, Guildenstern, you know, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. You know, are they really who they? Are they pretend to be someone else? And you know, have they got an ulterior motive? You know, it's about wearing masks. It's about the play within the play. It's about layers of reality. And I think that, you know, game space really did fit that well because we're all obviously in avatar form and we have got gamer tags and we're sort of already playing the character of sorts, even though we might be using our own voice. And so to then put another layer of kind of pretending on top of that was really quite interesting to do.
It is.
And there's also so I was going to say, there's also something about the way that Hamlet sees the world. In that famous speech he has, he says, "I have a label wherefore I know not lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercise. And indeed, it goes so heavily with my disposition that this goodly frame seems to me a sterile promontory." And he's talking about how he's not quite understanding why he's in this funk of feeling, of ill feeling, when he's looking at the world and seeing how beautiful it is, and yet it just seems kind of nothing to him, and the his view of humanity, how you're like, what a piece of work is a man, he said, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty. It's just looking at humans and thinking these are extraordinary creatures, and yet at the same time he sees them as like these kind of pathetic pieces of dust that nothing to them, and he sees all the brutality of humanity and the horror. So it's this kind of dual way of seeing the world that is really present in this space. Like it's, as I was saying before, it's incredibly beautiful, but it's also incredibly violent and brutal. So I think there's something of that, the way the world is presented, that fits really well in both Hamlet and in GTA.
And of course, at the same time, the pandemic was going on in the background, and obviously we were trying to put on you know, we were trying to put on this play, and when you're playing the game, you know, it has in the corner like these things flash up saying so and so has died, so and so has died, and you know, that was a bit of a weird kind of resonance of the pandemic, you know, because we kept on getting these figures through the news of like people, how many people had died in New York, how many people had died in London, and it was horrific. And you know, there was also this in the game. There were these non-playable characters that are kind of a bit like, well, they're basically background artists. They're not embodied. They're not played by a human. They're just there, sort of walking around in the background in bars and or in kind of the street. And you can go up to them and you can kind of interact with them a little bit, and they do respond, and they run away mostly and cower from you, or they think you're going to try and kill them, which is what most people try and do in game. And I thought that was really interesting because we were experiencing this kind of social distance from people where, you know, people would genuinely try and avoid you and they would be cowering quickly if you try to approach. And so there's things about this playing this game and also trying to put on the play in that space that was so kind of weirdly resonant of the pandemic and the kind of the terrifying environment thing that we were going through. But of course, it was also pure escapism at the same time.
I was wondering, you mentioned that the pandemic was going on while you were making it. Um, I've just been watching wall to wall coverage of the fires in LA,
Mm.
and then I watched your movie. So like that was like uppermost in my mind, and and then I'm hearing it's so hard to know what's true and what's not. But there's some reports of people looting, and some people have been arrested for lighting some fires. I don't know how true that is or not, but but it's amazing sometimes when you hear that there are people out there doing terrible things in the midst of a tragedy. But if you know Hamlet and if you know now your film, it doesn't seem completely unsurprising sometimes that people's behavior will be pretty dark. Um, do you have any thoughts about what's going on right now in terms of? I mean, it's obviously sad for so many people who have been suffering.
Yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
say it's a tragedy what's going on, but I would also say that the news tends to report things that are negative
Hmm.
because they get clicks. And I just from hearing through friends and family who were going through the fires, but also my own experience of the pandemic was the opposite. It was actually exactly what we experienced in Grand Theft Hamlet. There was actually a lot of helping each other. There was a lot of community. There's a lot of people rallying and not being selfish and not being I mean, we're kind of more likely to click on those exciting stories about people looting, but actually, what about all the less exciting
yeah,
stories about people who are just bringing potlucks,
because we've got friends and family out there at the moment, and it's horrific what's happening there, and loads of people have lost everything. But I do hear from our friends and family there are people coming together in the community, helping each other out, you
Hmm.
know, volunteering everywhere, and then you have
donating.
donating things, and obviously all the first responders working so hard and putting themselves on the line and their safety. So I do think, yeah, as Pinny says, there's a lot of kind of humanity present in the kind of horrors.
And I think that that is exactly what we experienced in Grand Theft Hamlet, and this is what the film is about. And one that gave me such a lot of hope when I was making it was, the people we came across who may not have known much about Shakespeare before, or maybe from a different country, or speaking different languages. On the whole, that I mean, yes, okay, there was people that were like griefers and they were just trying to just kill us all the time, and that's part of the fun of it, really. But it was also, a lot of people just like turned up to watch
Yep.
silently, wondering what we were doing, but also helping and being kind of like, stage managers. We cast some complete non-actors in our show that were, had never been in a play before, and people who were going through stuff in their own lives, but nevertheless wanted to turn up and help us. And it was wonderful. It was a really heartening thing to experience.
That is a very cool thing about the film. I enjoyed that. Tell me a little bit about the filmmaking part of it. I don't really understand how you're able to. Are you just taking the feed that's given to you from the game itself and then just editing it, or are you able to, as a filmmaker, somehow go in there and get angles that the average person playing the game can't?
No, we're just getting the feed directly from the game, but I guess what the skill is that Pinny really kind of worked at and kind of immersed herself in and developed was becoming a filmmaker inside the game and working out how to get those angles and how to get those shots as just as a player that in a way anyone can do.
Yeah, I wanted to avoid like the kind of YouTube gaming footage aesthetic.
Hmm.
I was very interested in trying to make something more cinematic, and we I discovered that there was a kind of in-game phone which you could then make into a camera phone like you would your iPhone. And that meant that you could kind of zoom in and make close-ups of the avatars, and you could kind of introduce a sort of intimacy and a variety to the shot sizes.
Wow.
There was also like you can choose between shooting, like recording your first person view, or a third person view, which is your own avatar in front. And I tried to keep things quite still, That there was some amazing landscapes and light that's in the game. So I was trying to capture something of the atmosphere of that space, which, I did feel like that was really the thing that makes the film feel different. Yes, there's a lot of gamey style footage as well, just to give it that authenticity, but it does feel, I think, more cinematic than that at times.
Are
I
there any
hope you.
are there rules in terms of copyright, in terms of shooting a film within a video game?
Well, yeah, there definitely are. I mean, we so Rockstar, I guess, became aware of the film quite early on and what we were doing, and were always very, very supportive of it. I think because we were using the game in an interesting, creative way, that reflects the kind of design of the game, and that it is this kind of creative sandbox. It's not just a game, it's a whole kind of world that you can go into. And when you start playing it, you feel like you can do anything in there. So I think they really appreciated that what we were doing, without obviously wanting to get involved directly, without it ever becoming, it was never a kind of Rockstar film or a GTA film. It's very much an independent film that we made on our own, but they were supportive of what we were doing.
So not anyone can just go into a game and shoot a movie without permission.
Well, there's a whole history of machinima films, which, if you want to Google it, there's loads of people have made films inside games,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
different ways. So
Mm.
it's a bit of a grey area, I think, and I do think it's an interesting conversation potentially for another day. But I think, in machinima, there's a whole festival, a film festival actually, machinima film festival in Milan. Um, and it's been happening for sort of 20 years. People have been making films inside games. A lot of artist filmmakers as well, who were very influenced us a lot. Like the artist called Jackie Connolly, who's an American artist who we saw at the Whitney Museum,
Hmm.
and her films are amazing, very atmospheric. There's also a film that won the European Film Awards, called Hardly Working, and that was by Total Refusal, and that was all about the NPCs inside Red Dead Redemption. Um, so I would encourage people to go online and investigate all the other films that have been made in this way. It's really interesting.
Tell me how it feels to see your avatars in the game as well as now in a film that a lot of people are viewing.
What it feels like to be in an avatar. I think that's your question. That's actually because Sam's writing a PhD on this.
Interesting.
So you
Yeah.
might be the person to answer.
So I think it's fun. Yeah, you see, you have, for lots of reasons. I think you kind of forge this connection with your avatar, partly because you create it, you spend a lot of time with it, and you kind of inhabit it and find a version of yourself in this avatar. So yeah, it feels like amazing to see this kind of version of myself, that I've spent a lot of time with, out there in the world, kind of being seen by people, and everyone else is having their own relationship with this funny little avatar of mine. So
It's a bit like, I mean, it's like having a puppet or
yeah,
something. You know that it's something that you sort of helped to design within a series of options, and but at the end of the day, it doesn't move like
but
you.
yeah,
It can
but what's
talk like you, but
interesting is, as well, with because it is like a puppet, and puppets are like this as well, is that you can often think of, oh, the puppet is completely controlled by the puppeteer, and your avatar is completely controlled by you with your controller. But actually, some ways they do have a bit of a life of their own and can influence the way you behave. So you end up doing things in the game that you would never do in real life, and you kind of can. This is part of what's so exciting about the game, is I think it kind of allows you to transgress certain norms of behavior that you could never even remotely think about doing in real life. But because it's this game, you can do it with kind of freedom from consequence.
yeah, I
Um,
think that's definitely something we play upon in the film. I mean, lots of people who've come up to me who are not gamers and have said, "Oh, seeing you jump into the game and sort of make your avatar and then start to play was my way in to understanding what this film was, because they'd never played a game before. And and seeing you, who's like a nicely spoken British woman, and suddenly shooting someone and stealing a car, do you know what I mean? It was
But
a little
there's
bit like, oh, okay, is that what you do? Is that, and it's sort of playful, and you realize quite quickly it is just a game, like a play. It's just a play. It's just people pretending to do things. It's not real.
but it's
um
so funny, isn't it? How people like, and there's a bit in the film where Nemini he comes to audition and she's never played before, and she starts shooting me and killing me, and she absolutely loves it and just collapsing in giggles and just gets carried away with it. And there's just something there about how it can impact people's behavior that I think is so interesting.
And it certainly blew the myth. I mean, I have teenage children, and I was really worried about them playing games before. And I was like, well, I'm not sure I really want them to be playing these shooting games because it might make them violent. But when I did it myself, I realized it was complete rubbish. I think people go into games and they blow off some steam, and they can be really nice people. Like, they would never do that in real life. They would never
Mm.
steal a car. They would never shoot anyone. It's very much playing and pretending. And I think that it's similar to theatre in that respect.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what's so fascinating. I think sometimes in life, people group people into different stereotypes, and there's high art and there's low art. And, I think before this film, maybe a lot of people didn't really think of the theater crowd mixing with gamers. And you bring everybody together in this movie. And I was wondering, like, what did you learn from that experience?
I think we learned that there isn't low art and high art. That
Yeah.
actually it's all humans playing around, processing difficult feelings. We
Mm.
make art, we make theatre, we play games to process those difficult feelings, and especially in difficult times like pandemics, and as we're experiencing now with the fires. And I think it's important. It's actually vital for us, our mental health, doing that. I think that's what I realized. And games are, but lots and lots of girls play games, but lots of boys play games, a large number of young men. And I do think that, we have to look at the mental health benefits of gaming actually for young men. And actually, it really made me think differently about that, which was interesting.
And
Yeah, and I think to
what
see
what
it.
what are
Sorry,
those mental
go ahead.
health benefits, would you say again?
So I say that again.
What are the mental health benefits?
I think the mental health benefits is it's like letting off steam,
Mm.
it's also a way to hang with your friends, like, and not, it can be quite difficult to meet up with friends, especially, obviously pandemics, but even in normal times, you might have moved away from your best buddy, who might live across the country, or you might not see your brother that much, or, you actually like, gaming allows you to, maybe just hang out in a kind of non-pressured way and have fun with the people you like and love. And I think there's something really great about that. I
And
don't think it should be sneered at.
also, I think it is gaming itself. I think of it's a creative act. You're like, as a gamer, you're a creative person. You are involved in the creation of a story yourself,
And you're solving problems and
and you're kind of
communicating and
being this character. You're stepping outside of your own reality and sort of being part of a new kind of storytelling.
I mean, there's, obviously there's a massive role play community. People go into games and pretend to be somebody else and have a whole other persona inside a game. And obviously that's something that people really enjoy. And so in a way you could say, well, theatre and gaming isn't that different. It
Mm.
really isn't. Like, it's actually the same thing.
So this film really might change films as we know it. Where can you see this all going in terms of gaming and films merging in ways that maybe people are not anticipating? These kinds of things are going on simultaneously right now, separately, but it seems like there's going to be something happening in the very near future. It is starting to happen, I guess. What
I
are the
think
new
games
experiences going to be?
I think it's really interesting time in history. I think games are changing really fast. They're developing really fast. They're becoming amazing. I mean, GTA 6 is coming out very soon. And their avatars will be I don't know, but I think they're probably going to be more AI generated, more responsive, more interactive. I think that the spaces that people are going to be moving into in game spaces are going to be increasingly sophisticated. And I think it will feel natural that we want to tell stories in those spaces,
Mm.
and we want to reflect that world, because that is going to be a place where things happen, where people have relationships, where people, and they already are. So I think that's what we try to do with our film, is really put a sort of mirror up to that, because, people have never, there hasn't been that many sort of sophisticated machinima films made that have been distributed in the cinema. And I guess in that respect, we are trying to do something new. So yeah, I mean, who knows what will be next?
I
But
think there's going to be a lot more kind of merging of different media, like of film and games and theatre and live events and games. I think there's going to be a lot of kind of events and entities that like cross over what have previously been kind of quite distinct boundaries between media, and I think those boundaries will kind of dissolve a bit.
I think they've got to go beyond the adaptations that you see Hollywood do of games, like The Last of Us, which are obviously brilliant and we really enjoy those, but that's still a film. That's still kind of keeping the film and the game worlds very separate, because you've got the game The Last of Us, and then you have the film The Last
TV
of Us
series.
TV series. But what we're trying to do is really use one to make the other.
Well, this film is fantastic. Grand Theft Hamlet is the movie we've been talking about. Where can people go and see this film?
Well, it's going to be in Alamo Drafthouse cinemas across.
Oh, you know
the
what?
United
If you go to Mubi.com and look up Grand Theft Hamlet, they've got a full list of all their US announced theaters that's going to be playing at. But it's going to be playing nationwide in the US from the 17th of January.
That's amazing. And do you have any social media or?
Is it on Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Grand Theft Hamlet on Instagram.
On Instagram. So follow us, Grand Theft Hamlet on Instagram. I actually manage the message bit myself. So once you go see the movie, if you want to ask me a question, I can try and answer that. We love to have a dialogue with our audiences. It's very much collaborative. It continues with the spirit of the film. But do, and it's going to be in cinema. I really do encourage you to go and see it in the cinema, because it is quite a collective enjoying. And we tried to make it a bit like going to see a blockbuster in the 1980s, that kind of on the edge of your seat feeling, like it's really exciting to watch and a lot of fun. And it's really, I think it's very funny.
I think it's hilarious. It's amazing when you guys are trying to stage the play and people just come up out of nowhere, and just the behavior of everyone. But the way that the two of you handle it, and you continue on with the process, and the context of the entire film and Hamlet and all that, it's just brilliant. It's so funny, and it's really thought provoking as well. I want to thank the two of you so much for coming on the program. This is definitely one of the most interesting films I've seen in a while, and I want to highly recommend it. And I wish the two of you the best. Grand Theft Hamlet, everybody, go check it out. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been really great chatting to you.
Really nice talking to you.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Recording stopped.